Adrian Cole stepped into the dim hallway, shoulders heavy from the 14-hour flight that had pressed his body into stiffness. His suitcase wheels scraped softly against the floor, a small sound swallowed by the strange stillness inside the house. The place should have greeted him with the faint hum of music or the aroma of Marissa's late-night tea, but instead, everything felt paused, as if someone had hit stop on the world 5 seconds before he arrived. He placed his uniform cap on the console table, noticing the thin layer of dust around the edges. She usually cleaned that space obsessively. He frowned. The lights in the kitchen were on, but only half. A single mug sat by the sink, handle twisted toward the window as though someone had placed it down too quickly. "Marissa?" His voice sounded uncertain even to himself. A soft shuffle came from the living room. He found her sitting at the very edge of the couch, elbows on knees, fingers tangled together. Her hair fell forward, partly hiding her face, but he could still see the redness around her eyes. She didn't stand to greet him, didn't smile, didn't even pretend. "You're home early," she said quietly. "I landed sooner than expected." He walked closer, searching her expression. "Are you okay? You didn't answer my texts." "I know," she whispered. He sat across from her, still wearing his flight jacket. "Did something happen?" Her gaze flickered up for a moment before dropping again. "I've been thinking. A lot. About us." The sentence tightened something in his chest. Their marriage had been drifting for months, small cracks widening into distances neither spoke about. He had hoped tonight might soften things. "What kind of thinking?" "The kind I should have done before marrying you." He felt a sharp pull inside his ribs. "Marissa, you're scaring me." She inhaled shakily. "There's something I never told you, something I should have, something that's been eating me alive." He leaned forward. "Then tell me. Whatever it is, we can deal with it." Her hands trembled. "I wasn't born the way you think I was. I wasn't born female." The words hung between them like a dropped oxygen mask in a falling aircraft, swinging wildly in the open space. Adrian stared at her, unable to process. His heartbeat rammed against the inside of his skull. "What?" he managed, barely audible. "I transitioned years before I met you," she said, voice cracking. "I was terrified you'd leave if I told you, and then every day it became harder to say it. I wanted to be loved without conditions, just once in my life." He stood abruptly, pacing as if trying to outrun the sentence she had just spoken. "You lied to me for years," he said, hands tightening at his sides. "Years, Marissa." "I was afraid," she said, tears sliding down her cheeks. "You don't know what I've lived through." He stopped, staring at her as though his entire identity had been rearranged in one breath. "I don't even know what to feel." The house felt smaller now, walls closing in, air thickening with decades of secrets he never saw. Marissa wiped her face. "I understand if you need space." He grabbed his keys, movements stiff and uneven. "I need air," he said, voice hollow. I can't do this right now." He stepped outside, the door shutting behind him with a muted echo that settled deep into the silence she'd been drowning in long before he arrived. And as he drove away, neither of them noticed the shadow watching their house from across the street, waiting for the moment their fracture would open into something far darker. Adrian drove without direction, the city lights blurring into streaks along the windshield. His grip on the steering wheel kept tightening, loosening, tightening again, as if his body couldn't settle on one emotion. Every intersection felt like a question he couldn't answer. Anger rose, then confusion, then a hollow ache that made breathing feel like work. He pulled into an empty parking lot beside a closed diner and rested his forehead against the steering wheel. The silence around him was loud, too loud. How could she hide something like that? He whispered to no one. Images of their wedding flashed through his mind, her trembling hands when she said her vows, the way she avoided changing rooms when they traveled, the times she flinched when he touched her collarbone. Small things he never questioned, now rearranging themselves into a truth he wasn't prepared for. His phone buzzed, a message from Marissa. "Please come home. We need to talk." He stared at the screen until the brightness hurt his eyes. After a long moment, he started the car and headed back. When he stepped inside, Marissa was sitting on the living room floor, knees pulled to her chest. Her eyes lifted slowly, already swollen from crying. "I didn't want this to happen like this," she said softly. He closed the door behind him, but didn't move closer. "You should have told me before. I deserved that." "I know," her voice cracked. "I've lived my whole life fighting to be myself, and when I met you, for the first time, I felt like I could just exist, without explaining, without defending. I wanted that feeling to last. I was selfish." Adrian swallowed hard. "But it wasn't just a detail, Marissa. It was the foundation of everything." Her hands pressed against the floor as if grounding herself. "I thought if I told you after the wedding, after we built more memories, maybe you'd understand. Maybe you'd stay." And then the days kept passing, and I kept losing the moment. I kept losing the courage. He sat down slowly, keeping a careful distance. "So, all the arguments, all the distance this past year." "Yes," she whispered. "Every time I looked at you, I worried you'd see through me. Every time you asked why I wasn't opening up, I froze. I didn't know how to bridge the gap I created." He rubbed his temples. "You should have trusted me." "I wanted to." Her voice shook. "But the world has not been kind to people like me. You were the one safe place I had, and I still ruined it." He stared at her, torn between empathy and betrayal. The emotions tangled so tightly he couldn't separate them. "I don't know what to do with any of this." "I'm still the same person," she whispered. "The same woman you married. The same person who loved you every day." "But you carried this alone," he said. "And now I feel like a stranger in my own life." A long silence stretched between them, neither daring to break it. Outside, a figure leaned against a lamppost across the street, hood pulled low, face hidden. The person watched the house with stillness that felt unnatural, patient, as if waiting for something to open or crumble inside those walls. Marissa didn't notice. Adrian didn't look outside, but the figure didn't move. And by the time Adrian finally exhaled, a faint glint, metal or maybe eyes, flashed from the darkness, hinting that the night was less empty than they believed. Something had started watching them, something that wouldn't wait much longer. The sky was still dark when Adrian finally left the house again. He couldn't sleep, couldn't sit still, couldn't breathe in the same rooms where the night had broken everything he thought he knew. He drove without purpose, streets slipping past like blurred memories. The emptier the road became, the louder his heartbeat grew, until the world felt too small to contain the storm inside him. At a lonely intersection, flashing blue lights suddenly filled his mirrors. He pulled over slowly, pulse thudding in his throat. A female officer approached, steady steps, one hand resting near her belt, but not threatening. When she reached the window, her face softened with concern rather than suspicion. "Sir, do you know how fast you were going?" she asked. Adrian blinked, realizing only now how hard he had pressed the accelerator. I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry." Her eyes studied him, taking in the strain around his mouth, the uneven breathing, the exhaustion carved into his posture. "Long night?" He gave a weak nod. "Something like that." She angled her flashlight away from his face, as if giving him room to breathe. "I'm Detective Lila Moreno. I'm only stopping you because you crossed the center line twice. I need to know you're okay to drive." "I'm fine," he said, though his voice told another story. "Just dealing with personal things." She lowered her tone. "If you need to pull over somewhere safe and regroup, do it. Last thing you need is an accident on top of whatever else is going on." Adrian managed a faint, strained smile. "Thank you. I'll be careful." She stepped back, hesitated, then added, "Take care of yourself, Captain Cole." He stiffened. "How do you—" "Your uniform jacket in the back seat," she said gently. "Good night." She returned to her car, and he watched her headlights fade down the road while the silence around him grew heavier. Something about the encounter stayed with him, a strange sense that she had seen more than he said. When he finally drove home, dawn was beginning to swallow the night. The front door was ajar. A chill ran through him. He pushed it open, slowly. The lights in the living room were still on. A coaster lay on the floor near the couch. A chair was slightly turned, not how Marissa left things. "Marissa?" he called, voice cracking. No answer. He moved through the house, heart pounding harder with every empty room. The bathroom light was on. The bedroom sheets were crumpled on only one side. Her phone charger was plugged in, but the cable lay loose. "Marissa, where are you?" he whispered. He checked the backyard. Nothing. Checked the guest room. Empty. No note, no message, no trace of her leaving willingly. He stumbled back into the hallway, gripping the doorframe to steady himself. The air felt wrong. The silence wasn't empty. It felt occupied. And outside, across the street, the hooded stranger from the night before stood in the same place, unmoving, watching the house with a stillness that now felt unmistakably deliberate. Something had happened here. Something he was already too late to stop. Adrian's hands shook as he dialed 911. The operator's calm voice only made the panic inside him feel louder. He explained the unlocked door, the strange silence, the missing wife. By the time police cars pulled up to the curb, his breath felt trapped in his chest. Detective Lila Moreno stepped out of the first cruiser, the same woman who had stopped him hours earlier. For a moment, they stared at each other, his panic, her steady focus, the unspoken realization that their night had never been separate after all. "You again," she said quietly. "Show me what's going on." He led her inside, each step echoing through the house.
Officers spread out, checking rooms one by one. Lila walked slowly,
eyes picking apart the smallest details. "You said the door was open when you returned," she asked. "Yes, slightly." "Did your wife ever leave it unlocked?" "Never." She nodded, crouching near the fallen coaster. Her fingers hovered over the carpet. "This didn't just slide off on its own." Adrian swallowed. "What are you saying?" "That something interrupted her, maybe suddenly." He felt the floor sway beneath him. "Do you think she left on her own?" Lila looked up, meeting his eyes. If she did, it wasn't voluntary. He exhaled shakily, gripping the back of a chair to keep himself upright. "We argued last night," he admitted. "Big argument. She told me something huge, something I didn't handle well." "Did she say she was leaving you? Did she pack anything?" "No, none of her things are gone." Lila studied him carefully. "What was the argument about?" Adrian hesitated, throat tightening. "Something deeply personal to her. I don't think it's relevant to a kidnapping." "Everything is relevant," she said gently. "Secrets push people into corners, and corners create danger." He looked away, guilt tightening around him like a rope. An officer stepped in. "Detective, you'll want to see this." Lila followed him to the backyard. Adrian trailed behind, pulse pounding. The officer pointed his flashlight toward the shed door. It was slightly open. "I didn't leave it like that," Adrian whispered. Inside, a faint metallic smell lingered. Tools were scattered. A box of gardening gloves lay overturned, and near the wall, caught on a nail, hung a piece of fabric, a scarf Adrian immediately recognized. Marissa's favorite one. Dark stains blotched across it. Lila lifted it carefully, her jaw tightening. "This is blood." Adrian's knees weakened. No, she wouldn't have been out here. "Someone else was," Lila said, "and they weren't careful." Another officer called out from near the fence. "Detective, footprints, fresh, and they lead out of the yard." Lila stepped outside, following the trail, her expression turning colder, sharper. Adrian followed until she stopped at the driveway, staring at the street. "Do you see something?" he asked, breathless. He didn't see the person, only the space where someone had been standing. Lila's gaze stayed locked on that spot. Someone was watching this house, not long ago. Adrian felt his entire body turn weightless. "Who?" Lila's voice lowered. "Someone who knows your wife. Someone who wanted inside." She turned to him fully. "And we're going to find them." But her eyes flicked back to the empty street, as if she already feared this wasn't just a disappearance. This was the beginning of something rooted in Marissa's past, and spreading fast. Detective Lila Moreno sat across from Adrian in the small interview room at the precinct, a cup of untouched coffee cooling between them. He looked drained, eyes fixed on the table as though trying to find answers in the grain of the wood. Lila studied him, his trembling fingers, the twitch in his jaw, the silent plea for someone to tell him this wasn't happening. "We went through your wife's phone," she began. "There were locked folders, encrypted. We got access to part of it." Adrian's head lifted slowly. "What does that mean?" "It means Marissa wasn't just afraid of you finding out her secret. She was afraid of someone else discovering something much older." She slid a printed photo across the table. A younger Marissa, different facial features, shorter hair, slimmer frame, but unmistakably her. Beside her stood a man with a stare that felt sharp even on paper. "Who is that?" Adrian whispered. "His name was Daniel Rusk," Lila said. He dated Marissa before she transitioned. Their relationship ended badly, violently. Adrian's stomach tightened. Why didn't she ever mention him? Because he didn't let go, Lila said. He stalked her for years, off and on, shows up, disappears, sends messages from burner accounts. Your wife filed 2 restraining orders before she even knew you. Adrian shut his eyes, guilt washing over him. And I thought she was hiding from me. She was hiding with you, Lila said quietly. But she couldn't outrun him forever. Another detective entered, holding a file. Detective Moreno, you need to hear this. Lila opened the folder while standing. The moment her eyes scanned the first page, her expression changed. What is it? Adrian asked. She handed him another photo, this time of a motel parking lot, yellow tape, officers standing around a body covered by a sheet. That's Daniel Rusk, Lila said. He was found dead last night. Time of death roughly matches when your wife disappeared. Adrian's breath punched out of his chest. You think Marissa? No, Lila cut him off. There's no sign she saw him, but someone else clearly did. He leaned back, overwhelmed. Then who took her? Lila exhaled slowly. That's the part we're trying to understand. We found a note in Daniel's motel room, a sloppy scrap of paper with one line. She can't hide forever. Adrian's skin turned cold. So he was planning something. Probably, she agreed. But something stopped him, permanently. A knock on the door interrupted them. Another officer rushed inside. Detective, house footage recovered from across the street. Lila stood instantly. Play it. They moved to the viewing station. Grainy footage flickered onto the screen. A hooded figure stood near the Cole's house, still, predatory, watching for hours. Then, at 3:14 a.m., the figure stepped toward the house. Adrian felt his pulse spike. Zoom in, please. The footage blurred, but the outline of a person became clearer. Tall, lean, deliberate in movement. That's not Daniel, Lila said. Adrian stared at the shadowed face, a sinking fear curling inside him. Then who the hell is it? Lila didn't answer, because the figure turned slightly, showing a shape under the jacket. Something long, metallic, not a weapon, a tool, something used to pry open doors. We've been looking at Marissa's life, Lila said slowly, eyes locked on the screen. But this person may not be from her past at all. The figure disappeared into the side yard, and Marissa vanished minutes later. Whoever took her wasn't done. They were just getting started. Forensic vans lined the street outside the Cole residence, flashing lights casting restless colors across the houses. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, whispering behind glass. But no one dared step outside. Inside the home, the air felt tighter, crowded with questions, dread, and the slow crawl of truth pressing closer. Detective Lila Moreno walked through the hallway with measured steps. Overnight, the case had changed. No longer a missing person report, but something more calculated, something staged, something meant to confuse them. She turned toward Adrian, who sat on the edge of the couch, elbows on knees, fingers knotted together so tightly the knuckles had turned white. We're going through everything again, Lila said, top to bottom. Whoever was inside this house knew where to walk, what to touch, what to avoid. Adrian didn't lift his head. You think someone planned this for a long time? I think someone knew your routine, your flight schedule, your habits. Lila paused. And your marriage. He winced, the weight of guilt settling deeper. Marissa told me she felt watched. Little things, sounds at night, footsteps near the window. I thought it was anxiety. It wasn't, Lila said. Someone was mapping her fear. Forensics made their way down the hallway carrying equipment. One of them paused. "Detective, you'll want to see this." Lila followed him to the laundry room. The wall panel behind the dryer was slightly off its hinge. A thin draft leaked through the edges. "This wasn't like this before," the forensic tech said. "We checked earlier." Lila crouched down, pulling the panel loose. Behind it was a dark, narrow crawl space, dusty, claustrophobic, and impossibly silent. Adrian stepped closer. "What is that?" "A structural gap," Lila said. "Most people don't even know these exist." They stared into the narrow darkness. Something shifted inside. Lila drew her flashlight and aimed it within. The beam cut through the shadows, landing on something pale. A hand. Adrian lurched forward. "Marissa!" Forensics pulled her out gently, carefully, like lifting a wounded animal out of a trap. Marissa's skin was cold, her breaths shallow but present. Deep bruises marked her arms. A cloth gag hung loose around her neck. Rope burns circled her wrists and ankles. Adrian fell beside her, tears breaking loose before he could stop them. "Oh God, Marissa, sweetheart, can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered weakly. Her lips trembled. Lila knelt close. "Marissa, I need to ask you something. Did you see who put you here?" Marissa's breathing hitched sharply, fear spiking before any words formed. Her fingers clutched Adrian's sleeve. "It wasn't," she swallowed painfully. "It wasn't Adrian. He didn't do this." Lila leaned in. "Then who did?" Marissa's eyes darted to the hallway, as though expecting someone to appear. Her voice was barely a whisper. "He was already in the house. He waited, listening, watching. He knew everything." Adrian stiffened. "Who was he, Marissa?" Her body trembled with the memory. "Not Daniel. Someone else. Someone who hates what I became." Lila's expression hardened. "A relative?" Marissa shut her eyes, a single tear slipping down. "He said I ruined the family name." The room fell silent. Adrian stared, stunned. "Your brother? You never told me." Marissa squeezed his hand, barely conscious. "He found me." Before she slipped into unconsciousness, she forced out one final sentence, her voice shaking. "He's not done. He said he has one more thing to finish." Lila rose to her feet, jaw tight. If Marissa's brother was still out there, the real storm hadn't even started. Elias Rowan slipped into the house the moment Adrian drove away, moving with a purpose sharpened by years of hatred. He knew every corner, every sound, every fear Marissa carried. She tried to run, but he dragged her into the crawl space, whispering that he was fixing the family. When Adrian returned, Elias was already gone, leaving only silence behind. At the hospital, Marissa finally whispered his name, voice trembling with exhaustion. Lila sent officers citywide, but Elias had vanished again, just as he had before. Only one truth remained. He knew their lives too well, and he wasn't finished.